My commanding officer stole credit for my idea, so I made sure the Pentagon found out. I was a staff sergeant at Fort Hood working in logistics when I noticed we were wasting massive amounts of money on vehicle maintenance. Our motor pool was ordering new parts when we could refurbish old ones for a fraction of the cost. I spent 3 weeks of my own time researching, crunching numbers, and putting together a detailed proposal. My plan could save the Army over $2 million annually just at our base alone. I submitted it through proper channels to my commanding officer, Captain Davis. He seemed really interested, asked lots of questions, took copies of all my research. 2 months later, I'm sitting in the base theater watching Captain Davis give a presentation to visiting Pentagon officials about his innovative cost-saving initiative. Word for word, it was my proposal, my research, my numbers. But according to his slides, Captain Davis had developed this brilliant idea entirely on his own. He got a standing ovation. The Pentagon officials were taking notes, talking about implementing this Army-wide. I watched my captain get handshakes and praise for work I'd done on nights and weekends. After the presentation, he walked past me with his smug smile and said, "Good turnout, don't you think, Sergeant?" That night, I made copies of everything. My original emails, my handwritten notes, timestamps on all my research files. Everything that proved this idea was mine. But I couldn't just file a complaint. Who was going to believe a staff sergeant over a captain? I needed to be smarter. I remembered one of the Pentagon officials mentioning they wanted to interview the person who developed this idea for an Army Logistics magazine article. So, I waited. 3 weeks later, Captain Davis got called to Washington for that interview. The article was going to be published Army-wide, maybe even picked up by defense contractors. The day before his trip, I made my move. I called the Pentagon directly, asked to speak to Colonel Martinez, who'd been at the presentation. "Sir, this is Staff Sergeant Jake Williams from Fort Hood. I have some important information about that cost-saving proposal you're interviewing Captain Davis about tomorrow." "Go ahead, Sergeant." "Sir, that proposal was actually my idea. I have documentation proving I developed it and submitted it to Captain Davis 2 months ago." Silence. "Then, can you email me that documentation right now?" I sent everything. Original emails, research files, even photos of my handwritten notes with timestamps. The next morning, Captain Davis flew to Washington expecting to be treated like a hero. Instead, he walked into a room full of Pentagon officials who had all my evidence spread across the conference table. Colonel Martinez later told me the meeting lasted about 5 minutes. Captain Davis tried to claim he'd supervised my work, but the timeline made it obvious he'd stolen credit completely. He got relieved of command within a week. Last I heard, he was reassigned to some desk job in Alaska reviewing supply requisitions. The Army implemented my proposal service-wide. It's saved over $50 million so far. I got promoted to Sergeant First Class ahead of schedule and received a commendation from the Secretary of the Army. Best part? The Logistics magazine still ran their article about the innovative cost-saving idea, but this time it featured the right person. Never underestimate a motivated NCO with good documentation and the phone number to the Pentagon.